Scott Reed has reported yet another gym being let off easily after several complaints stems several years of abuse. Hello and welcome. We've recently found that Legacy Elite has been given a resolution after 5 years of being on the pending resolution list. We've discussed numerous times how Safe Sport does a poor job of handling cases in a timely manner. We've also discussed how there should no longer be excuses since the organization has had an increase in staff and federal funding. However, we are still met with some coaches being added and removed from the post-resolution list in under a year, while others are neglected for 5 years. But it's not just a timely manner. It's the actions that have been inflicted on minor children that make people question if they should be banned for life. In summary, Scott Reed reported that Anna and Gianni, 2 coaches at a well-renowned gym, were given a short suspension from Safe Sport. I will now read some of Scott's work. Anna Lee, a former U.S. national team member, an 8-time UCLA All-American, and her mother, Gianni Wu, an American medalist for China and former USA Gymnastics national team coach, have been suspended by the U.S. Center for Safe Sport for abusing young gymnasts following a nearly 6-year investigation in which Safe Sport's handling of the case has come under increasing criticism within American gymnastics, the U.S. Olympic community, and members of Congress, the Southern California News Group has learned. Lee, an alternate on both the 2012 Olympic Games and 2011 World Championship gold medal winning squads, and Wu were both suspended for physical and emotional misconduct. Lee will not be able to coach or have contact with athletes for 9 months. Wu was suspended for a year with similar restrictions. The suspension comes 5.5 years after an investigation prompted the U.S. Center for Safe Sport to launch an investigation into allegations that Lee and Wu routinely emotionally, and in the case of Wu, physically abused young female gymnasts in their suburban Chicago gym. The suspensions were met with frustration and anger from gymnasts and parents of athletes coached by both Lee and Wu, with renowned criticism from Safe Sport Contact. Between August 2019, when Safe Sport launched its investigation, and this week's rulings, Lee and Wu not only continued to coach young athletes at Legacy Elite in Aurora, Illinois, but Lee was awarded 7 high-profile 2024 judging assignments, including the Olympic trials, the U.S. Championships, and a World Cup by USA Gymnastics Judging Selection Committee. The selection of Lee is a judging committee in December 2024 that included a former U.S. Olympic team coach Kelly Hill and Chelsea Memel. A series of complaints against Lee, in which gymnasts and their parents alleged over the ensuing decade that Lee routinely abused and bullied athletes, and then as a coach and judge, while under investigation by Safe Sport, retaliated against and attempted to intimidate athletes, other judges, parents, and coaches who have cooperated with the Safe Sport investigation, according to interviews in USA Gymnastics and Safe Sport documents obtained by the Southern California News Group. Lee was assigned to judge the vault at the Olympic trials. The same apparatus that Lee, while coaching at Legacy, allegedly screamed and body-shamed a young gymnast who was still mourning the recent death of her grandmother. "Get your fat ass over the vault," Lee screamed at the girl, according to an interview in USA Gymnastics and U.S. Center for Safe Sport documents. "You're too fat to get over the vault," she exclaimed. Under the U.S. Center for Safe Sport Code, retaliation against anyone for engaging in the center's process is prohibited. Retaliation, the code said, includes threatening, intimidating, harassing, coercing, or any other conduct that would discourage a reasonable person from engaging or participating in the center's process when the retaliation does not include good faith action lawfully pursued in response to a report of a code violation. The code also allows Safe Sport to place individuals facing abuse allegations on interim suspension, a protective measure pending the outcome of the investigation. According to documents, individuals placed on interim suspension can then request a hearing within 72 hours. Lee's judging assignment isn't the first time USA Gymnastics has been the subject of controversy for awarding her with a high-profile position. Lee was selected by USA Gymnastics Athlete Council in June of 2019 to join the 10-member group that represents athletes with the governing body's board of directors. Athletes Council members are essentially the voice of athletes with USA Gymnastics. Members of the council share concerns of athletes with the national governing body. Lee's selection came around the same time that USA Gymnastics began looking into allegations against Lee and Wu. Lee resigned from the council under pressure on the eve of USA Gymnastics Championships in August 2019. USA Gymnastics Chief Executive Officer Lee Leung, at the same competition, denied to reporters that the organization was aware of complaints against Lee and Wu prior to Lee being named to the Athlete Council in June 2019. But emails obtained by the Southern California News Group in 2019 contradicted Leung's claims. Mark Busby, then USA Gymnastics General Counsel, and Toby Stark, then the organization's director for Safe Sport, confirmed in a series of September 2017 emails that USA Gymnastics had received allegations of verbal, physical, and emotional abuse against Lee and Wu. Multiple parents have also told the Southern California News Group that they first filed complaints about Lee and Wu with USA Gymnastics in 2014. Yes, 2014. 2014. Let me continue. At least 15 individuals filed formal complaints against Lee and Wu with Safe Sport in a case of approximately 50 witnesses. Several other gymnasts and their families have told the Southern California News Group that they declined to cooperate or stopped cooperating with the investigation because of Safe Sport's lack of responsiveness or out of fear that Lee would not be fair in judging gymnasts at a national or regional competitions, or that she would speak negatively about the athletes to college coaches. And this is something that we hear regularly. To continue, athletes and parents said that it has taken Safe Sport up to 6 months to respond to emails, texts, or phone calls if the investigators respond at all. Libby Bailey, Safe Sport's Assistant Director of Investigations, on Monday emailed athletes and parents that the case to let you know that decisions on the Legacy Elite investigation will be issued tomorrow. The athletes and parents would also receive links to documents that detailed the center's findings, Bailey wrote. But Tuesday came and went without Safe Sport releasing anything. We had a request to delay the issuance by 1 day, and based on the nature of that request, we believe that it's trauma-informed and appropriate to grant it. Bailey wrote a frustrated Legacy parent Tuesday night. It's been almost 6 years and you're delaying it 1 day, a parent said. In a February 12 email to complainants, Bailey wrote, "Thank you for your continued patience during this process. The investigation report has moved under the final phase of review, and when completed, you will receive a notice decision in the full report." The February email came 2.5 years after Bailey, in July 2021, wrote to former gymnasts and their parents that Safe Sport was in the process of drafting the comprehensive final report in the Lee and Wu investigation. Gymnasts and their parents allege that Lee disparaged gymnasts in front of their peers on a daily basis, regularly calling girls fat, pressured injury athletes to train and compete, and threatened to make negative comments to college coaches, recruiting them if they struggled in training, were unable to train or compete because of injuries or illness, or appeared, in Lee's opinion, overweight, according to interviews with multiple gymnasts and parents at the U.S. Center for Safe Sport and USA Gymnastics documents. Lee was also selected to judge the balance beam at the Olympic trials. It's the same apparatus that Wu pulled a 10-year-old off by her hair to the floor when the girl didn't perform a skill to her satisfaction. Gianni yanked her off the high beam, pulled her to the ground, grabbed her by the arm, and dragged her to some mats, and then sat on her back, one mother said. "I was there. I saw it. I was stupid. I didn't know what to do. We should have left the club that day. We left a month later. Wu on multiple occasions pulled young gymnasts by their hair when she was dissatisfied with their training, including to at least one occasion when Wu allegedly pulled a girl by her ponytail all the way to the ground, according to interviews and multiple complaints submitted to USA Center for Safe Sport and USA Gymnastics. Hair was pulled and girls were constantly body shamed, a parent wrote in a formal complaint to Safe Sport and USA Gymnastics. Another parent in a complaint with Safe Sport in USAG said that she witnessed hair pulling under the guise of physical coaching. Another complaint alleges that a child had tape placed over her mouth for 2 hours by the coaches. Once, Wu pushed gymnast Riley while she was doing a handstand, sending her crashing into a balance beam, according to a complaint and interviews. Gymnasts were forced by Lee and Wu to train and compete while injured, according to multiple complaints. Coaches thought they were above the doctors, one parent alleged in a complaint to Safe Sport. They told the girls that they know more than the doctors because of the length of the time they've been in the sport. They said that they never needed lists from doctors, that they knew how to manage all injuries. Therapy lists were torn up and thrown in the garbage. So in reflection, we can see that Safe Sport and USAG are yet again failing both parents and children when reporting abuse. Anna Lee was neglected of her abuse claims and celebrated by USAG by being awarded high-level positions in the past. Recently, this includes judging at the last Olympic trials. Instead of USAG recognizing that she was on a pending resolution list, they refused to make this public on their website and honor Anna with high accolades and top-level positions. Alongside the neglect from USAG, the president Li Liang has lied to the public that they unknowingly knew of the abuse from Anna Lee in 2019. This statement was made at least 5 years after reports were made to USAG that Anna and others were abusing gymnasts. Once again, USAG, at its finest hour, has chosen success, medals, and money over justice in doing the right thing when abuse is present. While we are on the subject of poor resolutions, let's go back to Maggie Haney's abuse case. One of the worst female coaches will be removed from the suspended list later this year. This coach has caused emotional, physical, and verbal abuse and was only given a couple years suspension. I've discussed in lengthy detail how horribly her case was handled, and Legacy Elite is no different. My video is nothing new, except seeing an update on Legacy Elite. The only advice I have, if someone were to run into me from any of those gyms, is to encourage those to report their abuse stories to both USAG and Safe Sport again. This is because I've seen suspensions change to ineligible from the organization's definition of banned. It's extremely rare, but it has happened. There have also been adjustments to more years of suspension. Again, it's very rare, but it has happened. What I'm saying is that we can't assume that just because a resolution has happened, that coaches can't be brought back up for other abuse cases not previously discussed. If someone has witnessed abuse at the gym, speak up. You're not alone. I don't want you to feel that this coach has won by not being given a worthy punishment. It's rare, but again, it can happen. But if we aren't constantly pushing, nothing will change. Chi Han is another example. He wasn't given a fair punishment, but has recently been added back onto the pending resolution. Maybe this time he'll be given a fair punishment. So again, just remember, unless they are put as ineligible, any coach is still fair game to receive a worse punishment than originally given. Let's never forget that.